Solving one-step equation notes. The rest of this unit will cover various ways to solve equations, and we need to be good at this in order to proceed with the rest of the course. So this is an equation, x plus 5 equals 21. I'd like to solve this for the value of x that makes this true, and I know that many of you can just look at it and say, well, the answer is obviously 16, because 16 plus 5 is 21. And yes, these equations will be easy, but the important thing is the concept of how you solve, because they're going to get more complicated as we move on. So when we're solving an equation, our goal at the end of it is to get x equal to some value. Okay? And the strategy we will use is simply to remove whatever is next to x on that side of the equal sign. Okay? And a lot of people draw a vertical line at the equal sign to keep these two sides separate. So I need to get rid of this plus 5. So what we do is we always do the opposite. So if 5 is being added to x, we subtract 5. And one of the key steps here is that we need to subtract 5 from both sides of the equal sign. And that's why people draw the line down the middle. So they're sure to write negative 5 on both sides of that line. Because whatever I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other. Now, positive 5 and negative 5, they add up to 0. So they, in effect, cancel themselves out. This side, 21 minus 5, is 16. So my answer is 16. Now, when we're solving equations, we can always check to make sure we're right by taking the value we find for x and actually plugging it back into the equation. And you can quickly see that I get an expression at the end that is equal. 21 equals 21. So my answer of 16 was correct. In this equation, we're taking x and subtracting 17 and getting 4 as our answer. So to get x all by itself, I need to do the opposite of subtracting 17, which is adding 17. And of course, I do that to both sides of the equation. The negative 17 and the positive 17 cancel each other out, leaving me with x. And 4 plus 17 gives me 21. Now, it's customary to put a box around your answer just to highlight it so that people can find it easily. But again, I could plug that into the equation to make sure I'm correct. So I plug 21 for x, and 21 minus 17 is 4. So I am right. In this equation, instead of adding or subtracting something to x, I am multiplying x by 4. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. And we can write dividing by 4 like that. And of course, I would need to divide by 4 on both sides. Multiplying by 4 and dividing by 4 cancel out. And 28 divided by 4 is 7. So my answer would be 7. Again, I can plug that into the equation and make sure I'm right. And usually when we're multiplying, the number we plug in, we put in parentheses. So 4 times 7, of course, is 28, and we are correct. I put this example on just to show you that sometimes the order won't be the same as you're used to. So this time I have 6 plus x equals 4. So I need to get rid of this 6. And this 6, of course, is positive if they don't write anything next to it. We always assume that any number by itself is positive. So I actually have to subtract 6 to get rid of that positive 6. And I would subtract it from both sides. So I would get x is negative 2. Because 4 subtract 6 is negative 2. I can check my answer, of course, by plugging in negative 2 for x. And 6 plus negative 2, of course, is 4. So again, I'm right. For this equation, I'm multiplying x by negative 5. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And since I'm multiplying by negative 5, I need to divide by negative 5 on both sides. That cancels. 35 divided by negative 5 is negative 7. Remember, a positive divided by a negative is always negative. And again, I could check this answer. by plugging in -7 for x, and I use parentheses to keep it straight that it's multiplication. And of course, a negative times a negative is positive. So you should never get any of these wrong because you can simply check your answer quite easily. And a lot of people do the checking in their head, where they would just picture putting -7 here and going -5 times -7 is 35. Now here, you'll notice we have x/8. Slash is another way to say division. So this is x divided by 8. And oftentimes you'll see it written like this. X divided by 8. So the opposite of dividing by 8 is multiplying by 8. So I would simply multiply by 8 on both sides. Those two cancel. And 5 times 8 is 40. And if you want to check it, you could put in 40 here. 40 divided by 8 is 5. So I am correct. We'll just do a couple more examples quickly. Again, this is divided by, so I'm going to write it like this to make it simpler. The slash means division. So I could multiply this side by -4 to get rid of dividing by -4. And I have to multiply by -4 on both sides. Those cancel. And a -6 times -4 is positive 24. If I check it, 24 divided by -4, of course, is -6. This example, I have x plus 7, so I would do the opposite of adding 7 and subtract 7 from both sides of the equation. And if you want to draw the line, you can do that. Those cancel, and I get x is equal to, now, -22 and -7, when I put them together, I get -29. And some people like to think of negative numbers as money. And a negative means you owe someone. So this is like if you owe someone 22, and now you owe them 7 more, you end up owing them 29. This last one is x divided by -9 equals 7. So again, I'd multiply by -9 on both sides. That cancels. And 7 times -9 is -63. Again, I could check it by plugging in -63 for x. And of course, a negative divided by a negative is positive, so I am right. So just remember, when we're solving one-step equations, you simply do the opposite of whatever's being done to x, and you need to do it to both sides of the equation. Things will get more complicated later, so it's very important that you understand these simple steps.